world. It's your boy Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector. Top of the house, just below the roof, in the attic, philanthropy and focus. I just scurried down, grabbed more coffee because if you know me, you know I need more caffeine in this body. Keep putting in more caffeine. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Two flights up from the kitchen where I get that coffee and underneath the roof in the attic. Philanthropy and focus is the name of the show. I am Tommy D. I've been at this game now for 228 episodes. That's a bunch of Fridays in a row. Every single Friday morning, I make this journey up to the attic. Leader of another important nonprofit organization doing great work, as I like to say, and I'm here to help them tell their story and amplify their message. And that's what I do, man. I mean, tonight I go out, I'm being honored at Options for Community Living, Death of a Gangster, a Mafia Marriage, Murder Mystery event. I have 7 different outfits. I don't know which one I'm going to wear yet for that event because now I'm feeling like people are going to be looking at me while I'm there. So 200 and some odd people coming out to support Options for Community Living, which is an organization serving people living with HIV and AIDS, people experiencing mental health issues, serious and persistent mental illness, people experiencing homelessness. Right out here on Long Island, that organization is doing the important work. Shout out to the team at Options for Community Living, my friend Yolanda Rabano-Gross, the CEO, my friend Melissa Polsinelli, who's been doing such a great job working and collaborating with me, who runs development and philanthropy at that organization, and all the folks on the front lines at Options doing the great work. Thank you. I'll be there tonight. Captain Bill's out in Bayshore, Long Island, and little North Shore boy goes down to the South Shore tonight. We're going to figure that whole thing out. My new friend Ted is with me. Before I continue to rant about a couple of things, I want to say good morning, Ted. What's up, man? How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Buddy, I'm great. I'm great. That is the voice of Ted Sahos, who is the executive director, founder of Projekt NYC. And anybody who has some freedom with spelling things is somebody I want to be friends with. Focus is spelled Phocus, and Projekt in this case is Projekt. Projekt, baby. All right, let's get after it in a second. But you know what? There is one other thing. Before we get into it and talk about the important work, I got to shout out the New York City Imagine Awards, which is the event is coming upon us very, very soon. And you and I will talk about it because we need you next year to definitely put in an application for the work your organization is doing. And if the internet would hurry up and show me, I would tell you the date exactly of the nonprofit award. So the New York City Imagine Awards are October 28th. It's a Tuesday evening. Gustavino's, which is right under the 59th Street Bridge. It's beautiful. What a great place. 6 to 10 at Gustavino's, 5th annual New York City Imagine Awards. And I've gone through the finalists. I'm not going to read them off now. Go to nycimagineawards.org, nycimagineawards.org. Ken Serini, Kellyanne Serini, the team at Serini and Associates, my partners at Vanguard Benefits, always been big supporters of the nonprofit sector, specifically the Long Island and New York City Imagine Awards. All right, put that aside. Reach out to me, by the way, though, if you want to connect and get in the room that night. TommyD.NYC on the Instagram. And then you can get me on email, TommyD@philanthropyandfocus.com. How do you spell focus? Well, without an F and with a PH. That's how you spell it. All right. Talk about things that are spelled differently. Ted Sahos is here. Even your last name is spelled a little differently because it doesn't start with it doesn't start with an S. So it starts with a P, does it not?
It does. It does. It does. It's a Greek last name, so
Yes.
complicated.
I love it though. Throw in some extra letters, even if they don't make any noise. We like that. Let's do that stuff.
Right, right.
Ted, I'm glad we connected. We connected through the Queens Chamber of Commerce. We were at an event at Tiegerman School, which are friends of mine out here in Long Island, and they obviously over in Richmond Hill. They have a high school over there. They had that Tommy Hilfiger store. They had the Calvin Klein store where these young people are learning about retail. And I got to be honest with you, I felt like I was a thief because I picked up a couple of hats. They were like $10 each. I picked up a hoodie that was like $19, and it was like really primo stuff. Shout out to Calvin Klein. I think it's PVH, Philip Van Heusen and Company, that did that great work. Talk about collaboration with the for-profit, nonprofit. Well done, PVH, and all the work you do for the team at Tiegerman. All right, that is how Ted and I met, and now we get into the show. So I gave Ted a little bit of the business right out of the gate before we even turn the cameras on here, as they say, because I am wearing a Last Chance Rescue. Shout out to Last Chance Rescue, Animal Rescue out here on Long Island. I'm not wearing a Projekt NYC shirt. So what I was saying was, Ted, we got to work that out. We'll fix something there.
Yeah, I'll have one in the mail to you right away.
My man, I love it. That's it. That's it. Hey, you know what? I learned a long time ago from a coworker of mine. Closed mouths don't get fed, gang. If you don't ask, the answer is no. All right. So you got to ask good things in life. So Ted, I want to know about you, man. I want to know about your background. I always ask my guests, tell me your story. What drew you to the work? You and I have talked about this ahead of time, so you know where we're going with this. But I don't even really know you, man. I know about the organization because we met. We had one or two phone conversations after connecting, a handful of months back, as I said, in Queens. So first, for one last thing, shout out to Queens. Definitely my favorite borough, man. I was the first year and a half of my life. I lived in Belrose, Queens, and then my wife and I got married. We both Long Island kids, but we got married and we moved back actually to Belrose, Queens. Shout out to Glen Oaks Village if you're listening, Glen Oaks Village, like they're listening to the show. So Queens is definitely my borough. By the way, let's go Mets. Very important weekend for the Metsies. Very important. 3 games against the Marlins and see if we have a postseason. Ted, Queens, Astoria. Tell me your
Uh,
background.
uh, Listen, I was born and bred and still live in Queens. I'm in Astoria, as you may know, and it, I've been here my whole life. I've raised children here, um, and one of the things I discovered when my kids were young was how to find opportunities for them that was outside of school, right? Because I believe that whatever they did outside of school was just as important as in school. Because I realized that a lot of learning that young people do while it is in school, there's also things they learn outside of school, and the things that you provide for them to do will teach them a tremendous amount of things. And and back in those days, those opportunities were very difficult to find, and mostly based around Manhattan.
Let me ask you this. Did you and I know a little bit about that, what you're trying to, what the organization is about. And I love how, as far as I'm concerned, that's very entrepreneurial. You see a problem, you see a challenge in the marketplace, and you say, how do I fix that? Now, you're talking about when your kids were growing up, but if you go further back, so first of all, you know, Greek guy from Astoria. Wow, you're like one in, there's probably not a lot of those guys, right? Just if you know, you know, gang. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, Google Greek Astoria, Queens. You'll figure it out. But I thought, those of us who get it. But like you're growing up in I guess what, like the 80s or something like that. Like when you were growing up in the neighborhoods and stuff like that. If you're saying raising your kids, you didn't see the opportunities for this type of stuff. What about your upbringing? It probably was less.
Listen, in my upbringing, there were 30 kids in the neighborhood, and we ran around and caused trouble.
Yeah.
And we ran around and tried to find things to fill up our time. And sometimes it was productive, and sometimes it wasn't. Right. So we played sports, we did other things, we worked from very young ages. Right. So like when we were back then in those days when we were young, the summer would come along. My mother would throw the Daily News at me and say, "Find a job."
Yeah.
Right? You're not gonna sit around here all day and just watch TV and do this and do that. And that made an impression on me, right? When I had my own kids, because I go, what are my kids gonna do? And as things go, there are opportunities that are better than working at a manufacturing plant like I did when I was 13 in the neighborhood, or doing other stuff like that. There's other stuff that you could do that maybe push the needle a little more for the future success of what these kids want to do. Now, sports has always existed, right? So like kids could play
Yeah.
sports and this and that and the other thing, but there's also other things that they could do to fill up the rest of their time if they have any time. And there's a lot of kids that don't play sports. So that kind of stayed with me. And when my children were 11, 12, I decided that I'm going to get these kids involved in internships and volunteerism and these types of things, because I think it teaches them a lot of things. And I think it teaches them how to be better people. It teaches them how to be responsible, teaches them how to be professional in work environments, and teaches them resume building, interviewing, teaches them a lot of things that school just doesn't do. So I proceeded on that path, and I got a lot of heat from my parents for it because they were like, why are the kids working and they're not getting paid, or they're not this or that, because they don't understand. Like they're from the old country, right? They don't understand the value of these things or the resume building concepts that I understood growing up, not seeing these things from other people that I met or I interacted with as I grew up.
Hmm.
Because I would always ask, like, what did you do in the summers? What did you do in your winter breaks? What did you do in your spring breaks? What did you do after school? Like, if I were successful people, I would ask these questions about how they grew up, and a lot of times it was like internships and volunteerism and other types of activities that revolved around, you know, personal growth, academics, um, other things that were just very enriching and put them in positions where they were successful. And I wanted to replicate that in my own situation and when my kids grew up. And also now that my kids are grown and out of the house, I said, you know what? I think this might be something that people need, because it's not something that everyone has ready access to. And again, it could be something that people just don't uh, think about as much. Life is busier now, right? Two parents, or they're working, or it's a single parent and they're working and they don't have time to think about these things or research these things or spend the hours looking for these opportunities. And I figured that, there might be an opportunity here. And based on the response, it appears that there is. And I'm very happy about that. And I'm very happy to provide these opportunities to these kids. And we move forward. And, we're doing great. So,
We're going to get into all that in the programming and things about the organization. But I guess like, your background, did you ever think like in your other parts of your career, maybe we could touch on that. And did you think I was going to be like, I want to open a nonprofit. I want to found a nonprofit, talk about that.
well, I was always involved, even at a young age. I was involved in volunteerism and helping people. I was very involved in the local church. I don't know if you're familiar with St. Demetrius in
Okay.
Astoria. It's an institution.
Yeah.
I was involved in their young adult leagues and their youth leagues, and we did a lot of like charity work, such as collecting clothes and feeding the homeless and doing stuff like that. And that kind of experience inspired me, and I wanted my own children to have that type of experience. And as it turns out, they've become people that are very charity focused, volunteer focused, helping people. And that just doesn't come naturally, right? Like you have to be exposed to it. I always said, I have this thing where like you could have the best soccer player in the world in Queens. Let's say there's a kid who's the potential to be the best soccer player in the world in Queens. If he never touches a soccer ball, you'll never know. You'll
Yeah.
never know if that kid is ever going to be that. And it's important to expose, our young people to as many opportunities as possible for them to kind of like learn it and gravitate, and they'll do it themselves. They'll gravitate towards the things that resonate with them the most. But you, as the parent or the teacher or some other mentor, your job is to kind of expose them to all these positive opportunities and let them make the decision.
Yeah.
So it's a thing that grows. It grows inside the young person, and in the end of the day, what you do is you you find the best in that person.
Yeah. I think a big part of what I'm hearing you say, Ted, if I could reflect back, is exposure and access for people.
Yes.
Like I was at so I have four children and I was at the back to school night for the high school last night. And you know, I got I got a junior in that school and I got a freshman in that school. And I'm just gonna say what's on my mind because kids are trying to be everybody's trying to fit in, right? Everybody's trying to be
Right.
like whatever cool means, right? Whatever that is,
Right. 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 Right.
And like there's so many opportunities for these kids, whether it's this club or the foreign language club or the community service club, man, or the chess club or whatever. And I remember being that guy who was like, yo, I'm not joining these clubs, man. That's not cool, or whatever. And now I'm like the guy going, man, I wish I joined those clubs, man. You know what I'm saying? And like, and I try to communicate that to my children. I mean, I do communicate it. I try to have them actually understand what I'm saying, because like there are so many opportunities, especially where I'm at. I'm on Long Island, where there's the kids have access to plenty of different resources, whatever, right? And but Dad, I don't want to be in that club, man. That's not cool. I'm like,
Right,
actually, I wish I could be in that club like now, man. Like I wish I had the time, like
right, right, right.
it's an interesting thing. So if there's young people listening, this is a time in your life when you can try stuff out, man. I mean, I'm
No,
fighting,
absolutely. Like,
I'm
I'll give you an example. Give you
tell
an
me.
example, Tommy. I went to Brooklyn Technical High School, right? I'm in a story. I went to Brooklyn Technical High School. I'm on the train 45 minutes going, 45 minutes coming.
Yep.
My experience at Brooklyn Technical High School wasn't the fullest experience I could have. I didn't, I went there at 3 o'clock. I was running out the door.
Gone. Yeah.
Gone. I want to be back on the block. I want to see my friends. I wanted this and that. That was a mistake.
Same.
Later on in life, I realized that was a tremendous mistake. There
Yeah.
were so many opportunities after school, doing stuff with the school, so many programs that took advantage of nothing, of nothing. And one of the things I said, when I had kids, is I said, I want these kids involved in the school. I want them doing stuff that the school offers. And I made it plain. I said, listen, I want you to look at the clubs. I want you to do this, and you need to do something.
Yeah.
Because if you're not going to do something there, you're going to do something here.
Yeah, I'll tell you,
You
man.
know?
It's so funny that so I went to a place called Chaminade High School out here on Long Island, all boys Catholic high school, and I didn't get involved either. Very infrequently did I get involved. And they used to say people be in the 240 club. You know what the 240 club was? When 240, you got on the bus and got the heck out of there. And that was like a miss, man. It was like, it was just looking back, man. Like I think I did a little bit with like the yearbook club for a minute, and there was something my old man would drive me in the morning, so I got there pretty early, and I reflect back on this, and it's probably I hadn't realized over the years, but there was a club where people would bring in canned goods, food, right? It was like a pantry, and it
Right.
wasn't a pantry for any of the students because you had to pay to go to the school, so most of the students didn't really need to come here getting any food, but it was a pantry for the neighborhood, and they would take stuff out to different parts of the community. And I remember, I had forgotten for years, but I remember this about 4 or 5 years ago. I would go there in the morning, and kids would bring in food, and you just pack it in boxes or whatever. And it was like 30 minutes, 20 minutes before school started. Um, and but there was so much opportunity that I didn't take advantage of, and not to mention one thing, it's the exposure, it's the connections, but excuse me, the exposure and the experience. But one of the biggest things as a guy who's the nonprofit sector connector, bro, it's the relationships, man. It's like
Absolutely.
we're doing this thing together. We're involved. I mean, the only thing I really was involved with, and I kind of got tapped to do this in, I guess the end of freshman year, going into sophomore year. I was in something called the Parish Religious Education Program, and I went out to the community on Wednesday afternoon. So I was a public school kid before I went to high school. So I was a kid who had like we used to call, they still do probably CCD, like which was religious education. Like Wednesday afternoon, the public school kids would go to the Catholic school and they would, you'd get religious education.
Right.
Later, so I got that growing up, and then later on, I'm that guy, 15, 16 years old with a colleague teaching these young, like probably like fifth graders and stuff like that. But that was all I really got involved with. But there's so much opportunity, man. And again, to your point, like we look back as adults going, man, I kind of missed the boat on that. And that sucks to look back. And I'm not big on regret, but that's one of the things I would say I regret, man, because what could have been? What could I've gotten into? See, the thing to me too is like you see like these things that are like robotics, right? Dude, I don't know anything about robotics, right? But like if one of my kids got into that and like was fired up and juiced about that. Now my boys are both athletes, and my younger daughter, she's doing the cheerleading, whatever. But she's an athlete too. But if they were into robotics, man, that's like, and they get like really fired up and juiced about
Right.
doing
Right.
that. What trajectory? Now I'm like, dude, I thought I was like a baseball guy. Like if I'm one of my kids, I thought I was a baseball
Right.
guy.
Right.
but like this robot stuff is super cool, man. And I want
Right,
to,
right, right.
it's just, I think it's everybody's trying to, like I say, fit in, look cool, where it's like, I don't really, I think being cool is just being you and doing you and finding things you're into. What do you think about that?
No, absolutely. Just to go back a little bit on the networking, the networking is highly overlooked,
Yeah.
right? The networks need to begin early and often.
Yeah.
And it's twofold, right? So the networking is both mentor based, where you're gonna meet people, you're gonna meet people that want to help you, that are going to help you, they're going to teach you stuff that are older than you. That's one part of it. The other part of it is you're going to be interacting with other kids,
Yeah.
and those other kids are going to be interested in the same things you're interested
Yeah.
in. And those kids will you're going to grow up with those kids. You're
Right.
gonna you're gonna be you're gonna be friends with those kids. And then what happens is, as your network grows, especially amongst your kids and mentors, um, opportunities start coming to you.
Yep. Yeah.
Things start coming to you. And then it becomes a situation where you're like, oh, I think I could do that. No, I don't want to do that. I could do the other thing. And you start picking and choosing what you want to do, this and that. And, and your five friends that that you like are in this, program, and you would join that one because I want to be with them and it'll be fun doing that or this and that. And then you get to, and then it proceeds, right? Then you get to college. And I can't tell you how
Let's,
many.
I want to leave it there. We got to take a quick break. I totally
Oh,
botched this. We're way over. When we come back, you're going to tell me about college and what those relationships are all about. Tommy D, Philanthropy and Focus, Ted Sahos, the organization's Projekt NYC. Right back.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Broncu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a purpose-driven individual looking for deeper healing, clarity, and growth? Welcome to the Expansion Room, a transformative space for purpose-driven individuals. I'm Siobhan Larice, host, licensed therapist, and coach. Join me every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Join Tommy in his attic. Cut through the static. We got to move fast. I just kept us going. I was so, what it is for me, kryptonite for Tommy D is to break up anybody when they're networking. To hear a guy talk about networking and then I got to stop that, that's like double kryptonite. If you don't know what kryptonite is, I can't help you guys out. All right. Google kryptonite, Google Superman, and text me. We'll figure it out later on. Ted, we're talking about networking. We talk about the power of like being involved in those clubs, and even as it is at a younger age, but as it elevates to college. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so the networking is highly important, and people don't realize it until it's too late. You get to college, your network grows, and just a perfect example, like people that have strong networks, when they graduate college, they're not they're not blind, they're not in the dark. They have friends. Friends tell them, "I'm working here." The other person says, "I'm working here. There's an opening here. There's an opening there. You should put in for this." and they are your internal recommendation at those organizations. And people don't realize that a lot of hiring happens this way.
Yeah.
Where someone in the organization knows someone, they tell them to apply, and they're inside the organization telling the hiring managers and all these other people that this is a good person. I've known this person for this many years. They're very intelligent. They're very this. They're very qualified. And in my own in my own son's lives, this has been something that's repeated over and over and over again. I can't dispute it, because all their opportunities that come to them because of a friend or a mentor or someone else that they had met in the past, they have a good relationship with, and they present them with these opportunities. Now, you as a student or the young adult doesn't need to take those opportunities, but you have these options in front of you. Whereas if you didn't do any of that, like, so many of us growing up, we didn't really think this way. We didn't have this type of level of network, right? Our network was usually, somewhere else or in the neighborhood or something like that. We didn't have these professional type network where we met these people under professional type settings, and we were doing work together that was either, philanthropy or volunteerism or internships or other things that, end up becoming highly important, because, all these people you meet in those realms think like you, and they're friends with you, and you have coffee with them, and you have lunch with them, and you hang out with them, and it's more than just a cold, professional situation that evolves out, as out of network. I mean, me and you, we just ran into each other at the high school, and it was amazing, and I'm so glad that I met you, and I look forward to doing great things with you in the future. And this just, you need to activate this. People need to activate this part of themselves, even if they're shy, even if they're this. And the best part of doing that, if you're shy and you're not that type of person, is to involve yourself in events and organizations and programs where you're going to be with other people your age doing interesting stuff.
Yeah. Such great points, man. I didn't even want to interrupt at all because you're so right on, and you're like, it's so much that I talk about. Man, every so often a young person or their parent will reach out to me and say, Johnny or Susie just graduated from Hofstra, Johnny or Susie just graduated from Queens College or NYU or whatever, or they didn't graduate, and they can't. Let's just stick with a college graduate, because they're college graduate and they cannot find a job. Now, first of all, look, I'm not going to talk about college right now. We're not going to do that on this show. But what I am going to say is, well, I guess I am going to talk about it. We need tradespeople, gang. Not everybody needs to go to college and get a 4-year degree. We need plumbers. We need electricians. We need carpenters. We need these people. All right. I'll put that aside. There's plenty of great careers in the trades. Talk to me on another show, gang. But it's a very important piece. But what I was going to say was, Johnny or Susie, and can you talk to them, Tommy D? And I'll jump on a meeting, I'll jump on a Zoom with these young people, and they'll say, I'm just sending in these resumes. And Ted, you and I know this. They're sending in these resumes, and for all its goodness, AI, right? And all its challenges, AI. But AI is looking at these resumes, and a human eyeball is never seeing these resumes, right? So in your example, what you mentioned, your son, you have two sons, you said, right?
Yeah, two sons.
So you mentioned your sons and their network and their experience and how it's paid just great dividends for them in their relationships. Somebody's tapping somebody and saying, hey, look, you should come in here. And then their internal going, this is my guy. This guy is aces. My gal, she is aces. We got to get him. Versus somebody, behind their desktop, firing off 100 resumes that are going nowhere. It's all about networking. That's why I say this all the time, man. I say to young people, like when they tell me this, hey, I'm graduating, I'm looking, I go, you're on LinkedIn, right?
Yes.
I want to know that they're on LinkedIn right away. I want them. I'm telling you, my oldest is 16. I'm telling you, I'm like a year and a half, 2 years going, you need a LinkedIn profile, because we gotta start getting, because I think that now I'm 47 years old, man. There was no LinkedIn when I was in college. But I live on that thing, man. If I'm Googling LinkedIn somebody right away, checking them out.
Right.
And that's a big part of what it is too. That's the network. That's the relationships, man. Because many of the of the opportunities, meaning job opportunities, career opportunities that people get were never even posted. Or if they were posted, the people who responded never got anywhere because there was the connections were already happening behind the scenes, as they say, right?
No, absolutely. To hit on the vocational point, and I know you don't want to talk about the nonprofit yet, but a recent opportunity that came up to us, Astoria Park Alliance was doing their classic car show on October 11th, and they reached out to us if we could provide volunteers. And we sat down and had a meeting. We said, we've never done something like this before. What do we do? And then I said, you know what? There's a guidance counselor at Thomas Edison, Miss Rosario, where at Thomas Edison, they have automotive programs. I go, we should get these automotive kids to volunteer and interact with these classic car owners and learn about cars, learn about how they.
How dare you? You sound like you're a connector. What are you doing, sir? What are you doing on my show? This show is not about connecting. What are you trying to do? But that's exactly the thing. So the Astoria Park Alliance is having a car show, and you go, okay, who do we know? So go back to Thomas Edison, right? You call.
Yeah, so a lot of high schools in Queens have automotive programs in Brooklyn and Bronx and Staten Island and Manhattan, and we go, these kids need opportunities as well to be exposed to things that are within their lane, within their thing in the field that they're studying. And that has led us to network with auto repair shops across the city, car dealerships, in a whole different direction, right? And I'll give you an example. So now the network builds, right? When these people want to finish high school or finish their technical schools and get a job, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm their network connector, right? I'm their mentor. I have no issue reaching out to these people and saying, listen, I have a good kid here. I have a good guy that could work for you, this and that. Do you have any openings? Or if they come to me with openings. And this happens already on the other side with just like regular internships. We get that all the time, right? People are coming to us and saying, listen, we have an internship. We're looking for a good group of kids that could apply and this and that. And I put our volunteers forward and I say, listen, this is a good opportunity here for you to get engaged. And I'm willing to throw my reputation behind you and push you as hard as I can. And a lot of times when that happens and they see an organization like us behind the person, we're doing the vetting already, right? We have vetted this person. We think they're great. And we think that they'll be a great fit for your internship, your job, your this, your that. And it 10 times out of 10, it works.
Yeah.
I've never had a situation where it didn't.
We got to do a quick commercial break and we come back, but I got to give a quick shout out. I don't know if you ever met my friend Audra Forden. Audra's like third generation, owns Great Bear, mechanic shops, garages. Right. But she also runs a nonprofit called Women Auto Know, and they teach women and men how to fix their cars and maintain their cars and things like that. Gang, the website is Women Auto, like automobile, womenautoKnow.com. That's her nonprofit. I'll share it as we go to a break. I'll share it on the video. But like, Audra should be at this event with you that we're talking about on October 11th, which we are going to continue to talk about when we come back. So we are now going to get into the organization. When we come right back from this break, we're going to get into, you had this idea, you saw this opportunity, and now there's a nonprofit doing this work. We're going to get into that when we come back. How's that sound, Ted?
Sounds great.
All right, right back, gang.
Misalignment within your sales team or with the client stalls deals and creates unnecessary friction for you and the client, resulting in up to 37% lower win rate. If you're in pre-sales, sales management, or sales enablement, and you'd like to increase revenues, win rate, margins, client satisfaction, and stay competitive, this show is for you. Hi, I'm Art Fromm, host of the Making Seamless Sales Show. Please join me live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Phocus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marcanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Join Tommy in his attic. That's me. This is the attic. This is the show. Philanthropy in Focus. Check this out. Projekt NYC is a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Astoria, New York. Astoria, Queens, that is, for you all. Shout out to Queens. Let's go Mets. The organization is dedicated to empowering NYC middle and high school students through community service, creative expression, and civic engagement. Through internships and hands-on initiatives such as youth-led contests, volunteer projects, and literacy programs, Projekt NYC helps students develop leadership skills and a passion for making a difference, and also making a nonprofit that excels on networking and relationship building and connections and really getting folks opportunities down the road. Go to Projekt NYC, gang. If you want, projectnyc.org. Spell it this way, PROJEKTNYC.org. All right, Ted Sajos, we got a little bit about like your vision and what you're all about, man. And I'm fired up, and I'll tell you, it was great that we got to meet, and it was only a couple minutes we got to chat because there's a lot of people that day. But I was like, dude, we got to keep in touch. Let's do this. And I'll tell you, this platform, Philanthropy in Focus, and In Focus Production, my production company, the whole thing has really afforded me the opportunity to make many, many more great relationships with people who lead nonprofit organizations. Because yes, we got a great business, Vanguard Benefits. We do employee benefits, specifically focused in the nonprofit sector, Vanguard Benefits Hall of Fame, all that. However, when I get to meet somebody and say, hey, listen, you know what? I got a weekly show. I could get you on there and talk about your nonprofit. It's how do I say it? It's a pretty good setup. It's a pretty good setup to build relationships. So Ted, let's get into this. You saw the opportunity with your kids. They were younger. You wanted to make sure there was more opportunity or an access to opportunities of volunteerism, as we said, civic engagement. What happens when you start to talk about it and start to create this thing?
So what ended up happening is that the kids grow up, and then I find myself and I say, you know what would be a good idea if there was a nonprofit doing this? And what I realized is post-COVID, a lot of these opportunities are a shell of what they used to be for some reason. Like a lot of things fell apart after COVID.
What do you mean by that? Let me ask you what you mean. Like there had been opportunities for young people and they're no longer there. Tell me about that.
I think they were more robust and young people were more apt to engage. And something happened where they didn't engage as much. And what you had was a lot of these organizations that provided these opportunities are large, they're cumbersome, a lot of bureaucracy. And I think they're finding a difficult way back in order to engage these young people in a meaningful way. And we're smaller and nimble and we're just direct. And, so we seem to have, cracked the code, so to speak, in terms of how we, our outreach, our engagement, the amount of participation we get is very high, and we're very excited about it. And that led into So we created this nonprofit, and then we said, now what? So then we started reaching out to different organizations that might have been interested in young people wanting to volunteer, different groups, different companies, different NGOs, whatever it might be, to see if, listen, we have volunteers that want to be involved. How do we get them into your organization, whether it be on a philanthropy side, a nonprofit side, a volunteerism side, a corporate side, whatever it may be. And we put out those opportunities to people. And also we created products of our own that we thought would be beneficial. And we executed those as well and still execute them.
So yeah, so playing connector, that's what I'm hearing, right? You have these folks who want opportunities and you're going out finding opportunities for these folks, these young people to get involved and actually do the work and do the volunteerism. So can you share with me some of the earlier projects, like when you first like, now, so I'm assuming now you have these young people, these kids who are like, I want to do something, and then now you got to go find the work for them, so to speak, right? Is that
Yes.
out? So what was
Yes.
the first couple
So,
things?
so the work is could could fill many forms, right? So one would be, you know, a nonprofit that's managing a park would want to do a cleanup,
Mhm.
so a leaf cleanup or something like that, or some other event, and they reach out to us and they want, you know, young people involved, and we would reach out to our people, and they would participate in that event. They would meet each other. They would do the work. They would learn stuff about gardening and plants and all this other great stuff. I mean, on the flip side, we would create our own projects. And one thing that we're really big into is literacy, because one thing that people miss also that's highly important is, listen, reading and literacy is important. It's an important discipline to build. And what do I mean by that? I can't tell you how much reading these kids do these days. It takes discipline to sit with a book and read for hours and write and be able to write. And so I came up with an idea to do a poetry book. Let's do a poetry book of high school students. And what happened with that is we put out a call for entries to all the high schools in New York City. We got a tremendous response. We took 100 of those poets and we published a book of poetry of 100 high school students. And for a lot of these kids, this is like the first time they've ever been published. This is the first time someone ever took their work seriously. This is the first time that someone showed interest in any of these things. And that culminated into like a poetry event type slam that we did. And we were overbooked. And we had to split it up into 2 different shows.
Awesome.
And so that happened as well. And that is also part of like this philosophy we have, that kids should start reading early, and they should start reading often, and they should write as much as possible and creatively as well. And that's not just because, like when I was a kid and I wrote poetry, my father told me, like, what is this? Like, what? Stop doing this. Like, you're wasting your time. They don't understand what the future benefits of that is,
So
of
what
being
is
able
that?
to.
Tell me. Yeah, tell me what are the future benefits?
The future benefits are, number one, that you learn how to write creatively, you learn how to read and discipline yourself to read for long hours at a time, and comprehend that stuff, and you just do better going forward in life. I personally, I'm going to tell you, I never did that,
Yeah.
and I struggle with it. I struggle with it all the time to sit there and read at end for long hours and stuff like that. And I thought that was an issue for me, and I work on it all the time.
I'll tell you something, man. You know what's worked a lot for me, and I love to get knowledge and not to take away from reading because I think it is super important. But personally, I struggle with I'm a slow reader and I get distracted. So what's been a great shot in the arm for me, and probably the fact that I got ADHD is probably part of it. Not probably, I know it is, but I'm great on Audible, man. I love Audible. I love listening to a book, and I'm not big on fiction. I'm all about like professional development and business, and that's the stuff I'm always listening to. So, but I just found out I went to Amazon right now, and it's Projekt NYC Teen Voices from the Five Boroughs, an anthology of poems by New York City high school students. Dude, how cool is that, man? Like, that's just things coming to reality. That's coming up with an idea and then making it happen. That's a bit of the, as they say, manifestation right there. Just saying, like, dude, right? But real, right? I mean, there wasn't a book, and then there was a book, and there was a book with 100 kids who had never been published, and now they were published. Like, it wasn't there, and it is there. That's everything. You look around, gang, wherever you are right now. Open your eyes, look around the room where you are. All of that stuff, everything started out as an idea in someone's mind, right? Unless you're in the forest that's a different story. But if you're in a room with, or a house or somewhere where there's things that are man-made, they all started out as somebody's idea. And if you can argue, we're not going to get all that there, but you can argue that the things in the forest started out as somebody's idea too. But that's a whole nother thing for another day. Ted, that's the kind of thing you're making change. How? And then you talked. I heard you slip it in there, but poetry slam. What's that about? How often do you do those, man?
Yeah. So we're planning on doing that next year as well. We do it once a year. And what it is these same people are going to they sign on to get in front of a crowd and read their poem, and in front of their family and their friends and their other poets, other people their age, and it's very productive for them. It's very enriching. I mean, the public speak. I mean, we can get into public speaking.
That's what I was thinking. So go to public speaking, because that's what I was just thinking. I just spoke to a friend of mine who's an executive director of a nonprofit yesterday, and this person said to me, you know, Tommy, I need to work on my public speaking. This is an executive director of a nonprofit, so it's an adult person, not a middle schooler. But let's go to there. Talk about the importance of public speaking and how that's helped.
Listen, public speaking is a lost art. You know, like a lot of young people don't get enough education on public speaking and how to present themselves and how to stand in front of an audience and not be scared and not, you know, and ah and you know, like this thing can be overcome. It's a skill. It's not something that I cannot do. There is nothing.
Yeah.
There is nothing you cannot do. Everything could be taught. And you could learn, even if you're the most nervous person, how to public speak. And it's a tremendous skill to have going forward in your life. And as a youth, as an adult, and going forward, it's a very important thing to possess. And a lot of times people just don't have the time or the energy, or they just leave it to the side and they don't want to work on it. And then you have like people who you know, are nonprofit executive directors and say, you know what, I need to sharpen this up a little bit because I didn't focus on this early on.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, so, you know, public, getting on stage, reading and telling your poetry is a nervous thing. It's personal, right? Yep. You're vulnerable. And it's very important to learn how to do that in front of people, to get your voice out.
Yeah.
To be able to say your things in a confident and a way that translates to the people that you're talking to.
I love that.
And that's in personal interactions and public interactions.
Yeah.
All the time.
And the empowerment of that too, man, like to get up there. And this is something you worked on, and you taught, and what you said about the vulnerability, right? This is something, maybe it might be very personal, right? Or it probably is very personal, right? And then go up there and then to have people experience what you're talking about and applaud, and what that does for a young person or an older person, but what it does for a young person who's just trying to figure stuff out, right? And what that does, what a shot in the arm. Some of them may go on and write poetry. Some of them may never write poetry ever again. That's not the point so much, right? The point is giving them this opportunity and this exposure point. And I'm taken back to a guy I used to be friends with. We're still friends. We just don't keep in touch anymore as much. But, you know, anytime he would, you know, you go to the first class at the college level, you know, the first of the semester, and they tell you there's going to be a public speaking exercise at the end of the term, he dropped the class like that, gone out of the class, boom, gone. And he's not the only one, because they say people are more scared. I don't know if this is just a joke, but they say people are more afraid of public speaking than they are of death. Right. I don't know if it's true, but look, I think we all get anxious and nervous, and that's okay. That's because I believe that's because we care. And then there's an opportunity that growth is there. There's like this thing, right? And then you did the thing. Like one of my daughters is a singer, and like she had a solo a couple of years ago, and to watch her dude, I was freaking out for her, not for me.
Right.
I wasn't singing, but freaking out for her, right? And she crushed it. And I was just like, wow. Like I think in those moments there, the person you were before the solo, or the person you were before the poetry speech in front of a room full of people, and the person you are after aren't even the same, because now you've gone over this thing, this mountain, this hump, and you're like now changed. That just in a moment is a dynamic shift, because now you did the thing. So I am now someone who has spoken. You know, I never did this stuff that I do live, man, right? You know, then I did it 228 times. So now this show, and now I do 3 other shows. the point of it is that's not about me, gang. It's about just taking shots, taking your shot and doing the thing. Ted, before we go to a break, anything you have on that, just taking shots and being an example for others.
Expose yourself to uncomfortable situations often.
100%.
Often.
Life begins at the end of your comfort zone, gang. Get freaking uncomfortable. We'll be right back. Ted and Tommy D to bring it home.
On Frank About Health, we're not just talking healthcare. We're managing disruption and innovation. Over the last 4 years, I've taken you from epilepsy and COVID to mental health, caregiving, and now the front lines of healthcare transformation. Stay tuned for a healthier future as we bring on the innovators, professionals, storytellers, and advocates who show you how to own your healthcare every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Ready to serve up success with a splash? Hi, I'm Bruce Kramer, a.k.a. the Corporate Cockroach.
I'm the Renaissance woman, Angie Snowball.
And I'm your strategy doctor, Dr. Navtej Desange, inviting you to serving up success with a splash.
Join us as we shake things up with real talk and real strategies centered around awareness, action, and accountability.
And yes, there really is a cocktail involved. Please join us and sip your way to success.
Serving up success with a splash, where wisdom meets happy hours. Cheers!
Cheers.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
I said it at the break. I said right before the break, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. So what's the deal, man? You want to take a shot? You want to drop that class because it's a public speaking thing? So that what is the alternative, man? You're going to hide it under your covers forever and ever, or are you going to lean in and do the thing? I mean, if an 11-year-old can do a solo, or a 12-year-old or a 9-year-old can break dance on stage in front of people, whatever it is, freaking how cool is that? Because when you're 35 and you got to speak to a room full of people, you can look back and there was a 9-year-old kid, doing a thing. I got this, there's this young man in my neighborhood, and he always, I won't mention him by name, but he always has like this dance moves that he does during the talent show in the neighborhood. And I love this kid because he wears like funky clothes and he just does his thing. And I'm friendly with his parents. We live in the same neighborhood. And I'm just like, that's my guy. He just does what he wants to do. And it's like, it's out there. He flailing his arms. He's doing it. And he's just in this world. And I'm like, this kid crushes it every single time, Ted, because he's just doing it, man, And, when he's like, whatever he's going to be, if he's going to be a marine biologist, he's going to be the CEO of a company, he's going to be a carpenter, whatever it is, he has the confidence and bravery, if you will, just to do the thing, all right? Like, I think that quote about like confidence and things is not to, it's to be fearful, but still do the freaking thing. I don't say this, but it's like to be fearful, but I'm still going to do it anyway. That's life.
Absolutely.
That's where it is, right?
Absolutely. I mean, repetition is the recipe for greatness, right?
I love that.
So the thing you do over and over again is the thing you're going to excel at.
Yeah.
And the most important thing is to start. And once you start, just do it again and again and again. It could be a whole variation of ways, but eventually you're going to become amazing at it. And people just need to understand that. And like you said before, the biggest thing people have is the fear. Yeah. The fear of starting, the fear of initiating, the fear of that first thing, right? Like so many people have volunteered with us and they go, this is the first time I ever volunteered.
Yeah.
And they volunteered over and over and
now,
over.
Now they're a volunteer. So now I'm a volunteer. I wasn't a volunteer on Friday night, but because I woke up for the car show on Saturday morning and I volunteered by noon on Saturday, I am a volunteer now. I did that. That's a win. I got to ask you this because we're going to run out of time. Talk to me about the car show. Talk to me about what's coming up and how can we help?
With the car show is something that we were approached by Story Park Alliance, and we said we're going to support this, and we put out a call for volunteers that has been a tremendous response, and we're going to support it on October 11th. It's going to be a great show. I encourage everyone to show up. We'll be out there, and you can meet me and all our other board members and our volunteers and talk to us and ask us about stuff. Also, we're working on doing another poetry book next year. And one of the big things that I want to focus on that we did on a smaller scale this year is we did a 9/11 project. And we didn't talk about this, and we don't have a lot of time.
No, tell me about it. Tell me about it
quick.
quick.
So the 9/11 project, we had a volunteer named Tess Goldfarb who came to us, and she had an idea. And her idea was to interview first responders, family members, and victims of 9/11, and then meaning the kids do, right? The high school kids do. And then they produce a piece of art, a piece of poetry, or a piece of writing, an essay about that interview. And I thought this was an amazing idea for the single reason that these high schoolers were not even alive during 9/11. And they're not getting that firsthand information, that firsthand history experience of what occurred. Through this type of situation, this type of project they did, and they learned about 9/11 from firsthand people, first responders, family members, victims of 9/11, people suffering from illnesses, and it was an extremely great event. It was so amazing, and it was so moving. And this year, I don't know if many people know, we're heading into the 25th anniversary of 9/11, and we're probably looking to expand that project to go nationwide.
It's unbelievable that we're at this point, the 25th anniversary. You know,
it's unbelievable, Tommy.
And we lived it. I'm 47, so I was 21, 22 years old. You know, I remember the morning, the whole thing. Watching the TV in my kitchen with my old man. It's just unbelievable that it's gone so fast. A quarter of a century it's gone, Ted, since that happened. It's crazy town, man.
I know. It's crazy.
It's really unbelievable. Listen, man, I'm so excited we met. I want to be a part of what you're doing. I say that, you know, with all sincerity. I will do my best to be there October 11th. October 11th, by the way, gang, I bounced around on so many different things. October 11th is 9:30 to it says 9:30 to 4. Well, this has got to be wrong. I think that it says it must be 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Yeah, it's something like that. It's around there. I think the flyers we have the flyer on the website, no?
Yeah. Go to so it's Queens in Astoria South, 18th Street in Astoria, right?
Yes.
All right. So the information's on the website, gang, which is Projekt, PROJEKT, projectnyc.org, spelled with a K. But you still need volunteers. It says volunteers 14 to 18. You still looking for volunteers?
I think we reached a good. We're good on volunteers for that.
All right,
one. We'll be posting other stuff to do.
All right, can I come hang out and take pictures with you? Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely. You can come hang out with me whenever you want.
I like that. I like it. You got a T-shirt for me? I'm there, baby. That's how. I'm a cheap date, man. You get me a hoodie or a T-shirt, gang. I show up if it's a nonprofit thing. So look, Ted, thanks for all you're doing, man. Thanks for your vision. We're gonna do some cool stuff together. I appreciate you. I hope you had fun on the show today.
I did, Tommy. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and it was so good to talk to you again.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Listen, everybody, make it a great day. Make it a great weekend. This has been another In Focus production. See you next week. Bye.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.